Thank you for tuning in to Koppen with Comic. I'm Brian Koppen, and we're here with comic Samantha Bednarz. Samantha Bednarz, how the hell are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Oh, good. Well, first, up top, let's try to plug where people can see you do comedy on stage if they're in New York City, or where they can find your comedy online if they're not so lucky to live in this wonderful world of ours.
So this week, I'm not sure when this is. I'll be on January 16th. I'll be at the Gaff in Midtown West.
Okay.
And
So is the Gaff the venue, or is it kind of the name of the show?
no, it's the venue. It's
Okay.
called Bomb Shelter Comedy.
Oh, cool.
It's,
And what kind of show is Bomb Shelter Comedy?
It's a bar show. They have free pizza, and they actually run a really good show. I hosted it not too long ago. It's a lot of fun. It's God, who runs it? It's Jeff Cerulli, Matt Azark, and Erik Bronstein.
And so what kind of comics can people expect if they go see you there?
I mean, I've seen I've done that show a few times, and it runs the gamut. It's usually just really funny, like really, really good comics.
Okay,
Like
so something for everybody.
Yeah, the last show I did was fire. There were so many good comics on it. It was such a good show. It was so much fun.
Oh, good. And that's coming up on January
16th. It's
Okay,
Thursday.
and that is your next show
That's
where
my
people
next
can
one.
see you. And then if they want to kind of make sure they're not missing any of your shows, they can also track you online. Are you at SamanthaBednarz.com, or do they
I
find
am.
you via social and all those things?
SamanthaBednarz.com, but then also like social media, Twitter, which I'm pretty terrible at. I actually use the hashtag terrible at Twitter. It's Bednarz Samantha, because Samantha Bednarz was taken by some like teenager who then never used Twitter. So I
No.
was like,
Oh,
fucking-
she's ashamed to the name.
She really is. I want to go and find her wherever she lives and just light her on fire.
And pay her 3 cents for her
Just be like,
Twitter
give me,
handle.
Give
Yeah.
me my name back. I had it first. So you're clearly younger than me. Good
Yeah.
luck. And then Samantha S.J. Bednarz on Instagram and Facebook as well.
Okay. And then what? if
And I don't know
people-
what the fuck TikTok is. I know all the kids are using it. I don't know what the fuck it is. I have no idea. I know that like my young cousin was doing a TikTok that I was like, and dancing and doing all. I was like, okay.
It'll be so sad to see if your cousin has more
She probably
followers
does.
on TikTok or whatever. I don't even know if they have followers. So it's something that we don't know and we don't care to pick up at this time, TikTok.
Friends of mine's pets have more followers than I do. Like, well, the dog is doing great on Instagram.
Yeah,
I'm like,
the dog is
fuck.
super cute. So I probably follow the dog too. But not on TikTok. That's beyond me. And so if I see your act, are you going to be talking about things like that? Are you going to be talking at all about, whether or not I guess you're clearly not into the newest of social media trends like TikTok.
Right.
Do you talk about anything like that, or what can people expect to see if they take in a Samantha Bednarz show?
They probably are going to see me talk a little bit about my family, because
You
there's
had a big family.
big-
You're the youngest of 6?
youngest out of 6
Okay.
from the third marriage. My dad's third marriage, my mom's second.
Oh my God.
Yeah, my dad had a lot of kids.
Good
He
for
was just-
him.
Yeah, just shooting them out.
And so you kind of did. Now, growing up, did you need some attention, and that's what you're getting on stage now?
Well, no. Well, it was weird because it wasn't like all 6 of us living in the house. My dad wasn't just like traveling
right.
around like moving his kids. He was just like he would have them and then leave them and then move on to the next wife. And then,
And you were the final one
I was-
that stuck, maybe.
I was the last one, and him and my mom stayed together until
cool.
until he passed away. So,
So you had a smaller, I guess. Not all 6 didn't live with you.
no, it was me and my brother Lenny, who's my only full blood sibling. But
Okay.
then at different times of our life, like there would be different people living. It was kind of like a communal thing. So it's
Oh,
like at
that's
one
cool.
point, like my brother Sean lived with us for my dad's first marriage, and then my sister Lenore from my dad's first marriage lived with us, and then at one point, my mom's brother, my uncle Eddie, lived with us. Like, and oddly enough, all 3 of those people are dead. So what I'm saying is, don't live with my family because you'll end up dead.
And I must think it's probably closer then to a lot of the stars or a lot of the celebrities who are successful. Well, there's a large number of them who have been in military families, and so they've had to transfer a whole bunch. And so having to kind of live with transients, meaning people who kind of pop in
Right.
and out of your life, would seem to, I don't know, broaden your horizons such that you're comfortable talking to anyone about anything.
Pretty much.
Okay.
Pretty much.
And so some of the stories that you're telling on stage, are they kind of funny things that happened, or just a commentary on the American family, how you lived it?
I mean, it's kind of funny things that happened, like like one story about coming home from Thanksgiving dinner and my uncle, like in the middle of just like a moment of silence, nobody's talking, nobody's saying a word. My uncle just turns and he's like, "Oh, I smoked crack," and we were like, "Fuck."
Wow. We'll be talking about this for the next 3 hours, I guess. And what was the reaction to that? Wow.
My reaction was this: my brother, because I was sitting in the middle, and my brother just like turned his head like, "I'm not fucking getting involved," and I was just like, Can I walk home? And what the fuck, dude?
Yeah,
So
what do you say to that? I have no idea.
There's
nothing.
nothing.
There's nothing to say
nothing.
that.
Yeah, you're just like, great, cool.
And so you kind of spin that into comedy, like
I'll just tell. Usually with comedy, it's like I don't embellish all that much when it comes to stuff about my family, mostly because so many of the stories are just kind of like, oh, this is way too fucked up or weird I can't make it any better. This is what you're getting.
And I guess I've had a problem with some people, I've talked about it here, where some of I don't know, there's a comedy book out there saying that stories are not appropriate for comedy. And I think what she meant by that was it's very difficult for a less than skilled person to get on stage and tell a story because they don't know where the funny is.
Well,
but if you just take a hilarious story on its own and you can see the funny, you can just tell that on stage without any embellishment, like you said.
Well, it's also if you're like, if you're like a topical comic, or if you're like a one-liner, you're not going to be great at storytelling.
Right.
Like that's why you have storytelling comics. Like it's just, I think it comes down to your style. Like, it's if you're a storyteller, that's where you're going to probably be best. Even if they're short story, even if, it's like, because most of the time when you're getting up in New York, you're getting anywhere between 7 and like 15 minutes.
Okay.
So you're not going to have time to tell like a ton of stories, and you don't want to. I don't personally like blowing my time on just one story.
Right.
But like I've taken a lot of my stories and just shortened them down into jokes, but they're still a lot of my jokes are just kind of most of my act is just based on my life, whether it be something that happened to me that day or something that happened to me 20 years ago. But the majority of it is just based on my experiences. Like I'm not gonna get on stage and talk about politics. I have my views, and it's funny because I'm like kind of a centrist liberal, or I definitely lean left in a lot of people because I'm very aggressive on stage, and I'm like shouting and shit. And when I tell people I'm like a Democrat or a liberal, they're like, no, there's no fucking way. And I'm like, no, really. And it's like, or if I tell a very, very left-leaning crowd after yelling at them, they're like, fuck you, get out of here with your tiki torches, you cunt. And I'm like, oh my God. Like,
now, how do you kind of like, that's a nice escape for people to kind of avoid the political and to dive right into your life, which is, evidently funny. And so you choose your kind of a story for you will be more a bit or collection of jokes.
Yes.
Like we'll pick a story that's ripe for, I can get at least 4 jokes here, so let me put them in tiny succession. And so how then do you I have some stories, maybe 3 or 4 that kind of are organized like that, where it can be a collection of, 4 jokes. How do you find yourself transitioning from something that happened maybe 20 years ago to something that happened to you today? Like, do you kind of preface it as, okay, I'm really angry today, but I think I'm angry in life because of the way I was raised. Like, how do you preface it in a way to make it feel fresh?
Well, there's one thing I actually do. There's one joke. I don't always open with it, but I almost always use it about, I'll say like happy national whatever day it is that day.
Yeah, it'll be a day, right? Every day has one of those.
Every day has a weird holiday attached to it. And so I'll talk about that. I'll talk about whatever the weird day is. And then it's because what I'll do is I won't have like a big story that I then turn into 4 jokes. I'll have a big story that I then cut down into 1 joke. And then I'll just... for instance, I'll be like, happy national whatever day it is. And then lately I've been talking about, because it's not that far back in memory, about how National Trick-or-Treat Day was not Halloween. It was October 26th. And
oh my gosh.
About it. Yeah, I talk about how mad that makes me. And then I talk about how we had something called National Siblings Day. And that's how I get into talking about my family.
Okay.
So I'll use something that's current. And then I use that as just kind of a segue directly into that. And then I'll like a lot of times I'll talk about my age on stage a lot. And it's funny because comics are like, oh, never say your age on stage because then, clubs won't book you. And I'm like, well, clubs aren't booking me anyway. So like they weren't booking me at 32. They're not booking me at 42.
Oh, I love that.
So I'm just like, I personally don't give a shit, but I talk about my age. I talk about, just like stories, but it's not always, it's not like 10 to 15 minutes of nothing but stories. There are also like little throwaway things. And I also, I try to keep it when I first started, I had to stick to my set list because I would like I think a lot of comics have this where our minds are just constantly fucking racing. There's just a ton of shit running through them.
Yeah.
And so if I didn't stick to my set list, I would be like, "Oh god, what just happened?" Like, if something took me out of it, like with the audience,
Yeah.
I would have a hard time getting back to it.
Yeah.
I'm much more comfortable with that now. Now it's like if something happens in the audience, I want that.
Okay.
Because I love to one of my favorite things to do is to crouch down and talk to someone in the front row just because it's like I love people's reactions.
Yeah.
Because a lot of
right
the
in their face.
Yeah, a lot of times I'll say something and you could see someone's face like, and they're either I won't like if someone's just laughing unless they're laughing at somebody that's like something that's horrible. Like I'll say like I have a joke where I say like I'll talk about National Siblings Day and then I'll be like, yeah, there's I'm the youngest out of 6 and it was National Siblings Day. We don't celebrate because it's national like I'm the youngest out of 6, but there's only 3 of us left. And then the audience is like. And I'm like, oh my God, guys, I'm kidding. And then they start laughing. And I'm like, only 2 of them are dead. One's just dead to me. And they're like, oh my God. Ah.
Oh, that's good.
And or sometimes if they laugh at that, I'm like, oh, you guys are monsters. I'm like, and then I'll crouch down and be like, my dad's dead too. You want to laugh at that pain? And they're like, ah.
And then does it bring you into jokes about your dad then? And kind of what were your parents like? How does that kind of, come into your comedy? Like, if I'm going to see a Samantha Bednarz show, I'm going to walk away thinking that her mother was this way and her father was this way.
I don't talk about my mom too much. I mean, I currently take care of my mother. So it's just like sometimes, like if I've just left the house and she has annoyed me, I can't get into it because I'm going to be like, like, you ever take care of an old lady? And then it's just like, oh, she's mad.
Yeah. It might not be as funny because you're just ranting for real.
Where I'm very comfortable with ranting. Don't get me. Ranting and raving, acting like a lunatic, that's kind of my comfort zone in general. But and I'm now much more comfortable with going into that and then coming back out and going into the next joke. Whereas
and so,
10 years ago, I couldn't do that.
Right. And so when you find yourself going back into it, are you so good at ranting that you can just say, okay, where was I? Do you have like a neat transition back into it that makes you more comfortable transitioning back in?
Sometimes it really depends on the day because sometimes I'm just kind of like, all right. And then sometimes I'll go into the next joke, which isn't even the joke I was meaning to go into, but I'll just be like, this is fine. I can pop my way back through and I'll be okay. Like, you do it long enough and you just have enough stuff that you're like, I don't always segue. Sometimes I just end a joke and go into the next one.
And are you doing it with the acknowledgement that you're abruptly transitioning? Or totally new topic, and then you just launch into something else?
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes I'll just end, and there'll be like a moment, and then I'm like a lot of, I like the line, so this is where I'm at in life.
Oh, okay. Because
it's sort of like, okay, this is a new beginning.
Yeah.
And then it'll just, like, oh, this is where I'm at in life. I'd much rather be at home watching, like finishing up season 5 of The Wire because that's how far back I am on my fucking binge watching. Than actually being here right now. And they're kind of like, oh, okay, she doesn't give a shit about us. But
yeah, so it sounds like you're comfortable on stage enough to do that. So you've been doing it for a while, and you grew up in New York City.
I did.
And so what's it like being a comic in New York City after you've lived here forever amid a sea of comics who might be transplants?
It's very interesting because it's not just like you're doing this amongst comics who might be transplants. You're doing it amongst audiences who are transplants or visitors or and it's the rest of your life. Like the other parts of your life, like work. So many of the people I work with did not grow up here. Yeah. And so, a few of the people that I work directly with did, but then there's a few people who are like, oh, I'm from here, there, or the other place. And it's, like some people are very cool. I get very mad at people who are like, oh, well, I've been here for 10 years, so I'm a New Yorker now. And I'm like, you're not. I have jokes about like, being from New York, and I grew up on the Upper East Side, which sounds super Like, people are like, oh, this bitch is money. And I'm like, no, this accent doesn't come with money. Like, I grew up in Yorkville. It's a very blue-collar neighborhood. I grew up in a blue-collar family. You know, I'm the
So
first...
back in the day, it was. I mean, even now, is it still as blue collar as it was
There
that
are
as you
some
were growing
there
up?
are some people. There are still some blue-collar people in the
Okay.
neighborhood. Like, it's you know, you find, like, growing up, I knew, like, every guy I knew was either a construction worker, a doorman, or a teacher. Which in the teacher thing was a little, I was just like, so you're just afraid of heights, or, you know, like,
You didn't
you
get
don't
any
like to hold
construction,
it,
yeah.
you know,
yeah.
or I'm like, oh, good for you, you went to college. But it was pretty much like every guy I grew up with went into, like, three, like, either a union job or teaching, which I don't know if teachers are in a union or not. I'm assuming they are.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, they're always picketing.
Yeah, the teachers union is always investing in things that turn out to be fraudulent. I mean, all these pension plans really get swindled. But growing up with those kind of three professions in your neighborhood, and now seeing transplants from all over the place, are you able to toy with, people's perception of New York versus the reality in your act?
In my act, I kind of don't really, like, people are always like, oh, you have to, I always read my audience, and it's just like, but I don't. A lot of people will alter, I don't know about a lot of people, some people will alter their acts to be like, oh, well, there's these type of people in the audience, so I'm not going to do these types of jokes or whatever. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to do exactly what I fucking planned on doing. And sometimes, and if I know there's a lot of people not from New York in the audience, I will lean into my New York stuff.
Oh, cool. That's interesting to them, I think.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. And I'll talk about, how New Yorkers, like, one of my jokes is about how New Yorkers are really accepting of people depending on where they're from.
Yeah.
Like, if you're from another country, we are super into you here.
Yeah.
We're like, oh man, where are you from? Like, you're from Colombia? Come on in, bring the cocaine. Hey man, you're from Ireland? Awesome, bring the whiskey. Hey man, where are you from? Ohio? Get the fuck out of here, And that's actually that's one of my more aggressive jokes, because I get really, like, I almost, like, I don't charge the audience, but my stance is to kind of come at them a little bit, and you
cool.
can see they kind of back up like, ugh.
And are you going to be doing stuff like that? Like, can I expect a confrontational show from Samantha Bednarz at the Gaff coming up?
Probably.
Okay.
Probably, because the last time I was there, it was only a couple weeks ago, and I hosted, and it was so much fun, because I love hosting. And anybody listening to this, have me host your show. I love hosting, because it's, to me, there's, like, I've been talking to a few people, and people are like, well, the host has to be structured because they have to, like, guide the show. And I'm like, yeah, they have to guide the show, but that doesn't mean you have to be structured. Like,
right.
you have to have it in you. You're getting dropped into the mode of the audience, and you have to go with the flow of whatever's happening.
Yeah.
And you also have to, if you have to shut people down if they're being, like, too rowdy, but you also have to keep them up if they're being too dead. So it's like, you can't just go in and be like, this is what I'm going to be like. That hosting is when you really have to go, like, all right, I just got to roll with the punches. I got to see, that's when you really got to, like, read your audience heavily and see what they're into, and kind of.
Yeah, you're like the hero of the show, because if somebody else sucked,
oh yeah,
if a comic
you have to go, and you have, like, oh, let me get the mop. Let me just mop up after this fucking asshole.
And then, are you hosting the show at the Gaff?
No,
okay.
not this time.
You have one of the spots. And do you know who else is going to be on the show? Just off the top. Okay.
No,
it's going to be good people, and it's Midtown West.
Midtown West. It's on God, is it on 49th or it's somewhere, it's either like 49th or 48th, maybe, I don't think it's 50th. It's like 48th, 49th, between, I want to say 9th and 10th. It's either 9th and 10th or 8th and 9th, but it's in that Hell's Kitchen, that old school Hell's Kitchen area.
Oh, cool. And then other shows, if they don't see you on January 16th at the Gaff, they'll go to SamanthaBednarz.com.
Or you're probably better off looking on either Facebook or on Instagram. I post more there. I'm kind of shit at my website.
And at TikTok. Don't find her on TikTok. It'll be somebody else, right?
Although
her cousin's on there. Follow her, right?
I kind of want to get a TikTok, like, account now, and just be like, what the fuck is this?
Yes, I almost think you'd go viral just saying, what the fuck is this?
Yeah, probably, and then dancing to it, I mean, whatever, I don't know, the young folks do.
Whatever the kids are doing. We're no longer kids. We are just, and it's good to know that you talk about your age on stage, because I'm a little bit older. And so, because I really think a lot of people in the audience will be relating to anything you're going through.
Well, it's also, it's funny, because like when we were growing up, because you and I are pretty close in age, like when we were growing up, when you would look at a show, like I don't know if you remember the show 30 something.
Yeah.
I remember looking at that show and being like, that's what 30 looks like? What the fuck? And now it's like I'm in my 40s and I'm like, okay, either I just was blind as a child, or or like 30 back in the 80s looked like what 50 looks like now.
Yeah,
Like,
it's aspirational to us now, right?
it's also people just, I don't know if people are just taking better care of themselves, or people, or if it's just me being, wearing like rose tinted glasses. Like, sometimes I'll look at somebody and I'm like, oh, you're like 35, like, you look like shit. But sometimes you'll look at people in their 40s. Like, when you told me your age, I was just like, oh, no, I didn't think we were anywhere close in age. But most people don't think I look my age. And that's another thing I make jokes about how I don't look my age. Because
you look significantly younger.
Yeah,
Hopefully I look younger because, I'm overweight. But, yeah, you look really young, and so it's gonna be fun to see you at the Gaff, Midtown West, and then in the meantime, you're a good follow on Twitter. I follow you on Twitter.
Thank
and
you.
Are you Samantha? Are you Bednarz Samantha?
Bednarz Samantha.
And there's no SJ in there.
No, it's just because it didn't fit. The letters didn't fit.
Oh, okay. So it's Bednarz Samantha.
Yeah, you can't have on Twitter. You have like a finite amount of letters. They're just like, here are the amount of letters you can have. You figure it the fuck out. It's just kind of like the way they have their tweets.
Yeah.
Used to be 140. Now what is it? It's 280.
So they should just up the handle too, so you'd be able to say
nice.
The other Samantha Bednarz is a child and does not use her account and should delete it immediately.
It would literally be Samantha S.J. Bednarz on Twitter.
Okay.
If I could fit those two, because Samantha Bednarz and Bednarz Samantha fit perfect. If they could give me 2 extra goddamn letters, that's what I would fucking put in there.
Jack Dorsey, make that happen. Who cares about disinformation during an election? We need the SJ.
If you just Google Samantha S.J. Bednarz, you'll find all of my social media stuff.
Okay.
Because it's you have your handle, but then you also have your name on Twitter.
Yeah.
My name on Twitter is Samantha S.J. Bednarz. My handle is Bednarz Samantha.
Oh, so you got that. Everybody sees Samantha S.J. Bednarz at the Gaff, Midtown West. Thank you so much, Samantha.
Absolutely. Thank you.